Did you know that every time you apply heat to your hair, it changes its internal structure? Yes, really. Keep on watching if you'd like to know more and know how not to damage your hair when heat styling. Hello and welcome to the world of Craig. Yes, that's me, I'm Craig, and this is my channel where we get into all things hair and sometimes a little bit of beauty. Spring has sprung here in the UK, in London. It is glorious and I am overjoyed, thank goodness. I hope that you're all well. You have already seen from the splash here. Thank you for coming back to watch this. And if you're here for the first time, hi. If you've seen the splash and the thumbnail, you will know that this is all about heat styling. But more importantly, what we're going to talk about, or the crux of the video, is what happens to your hair when you heat style it, because it's quite epic. Yes. And then I'm going to share with you some of my favorite heat protectors. Lots of you have asked recently about things that can protect your hair. So we're going to talk about higher end products, and then also I have some dupes for you too. So without further ado, all of that rhymed, let's get into what happens to your hair when you apply heat to it. Now let's start at the beginning with what hair actually is. Hair is a fibre that is extruded from the top of our heads, blimey, that when it hits the air, when it hits oxygen, it keratinizes, which means it becomes a solid form. Hair is made from protein, that's what hair is, amino acids and polypeptide chains. I'm not going to get too sciencey because what happens to the hair when you apply heat to it is quite incredible. And I know that a lot of people don't understand what does happen, okay? And that wasn't clickbait in the splash at the beginning. The hair's internal structure does actually change. Let me pop my hair cross-section diagram on the screen here, slightly different one for this video. Inside hair, there are lots of different bonds. There are disulfide bonds, and there are polypeptide chains, and there are also hydrogen bonds, okay? When you apply water to hair, it softens the hydrogen bonds. Quite incredible. Hair absorbs water. Hair does actually take in water, moisture, okay? And when you apply water to it, it softens the hydrogen bonds. Then as the hair dries, the hydrogen bonds go back together. They form back together, which is quite mind-blowing as far as I'm concerned. And that's why when hair is wet, it is very fragile. Once the hair is then dry to touch, it still contains moisture, it still contains some of that water, but then when you apply a hot styling tool like a flat iron or a blow dryer, you are actually temporarily breaking those hydrogen bonds, and then when the hair cools, the hydrogen bonds come back together and the curl or the flatness, the sleekness is set in place until the hair is next shampooed. Oh my goodness, I mean that is quite mind-blowing. But the thing is, if you don't protect hair from heat styling, heat tools of any kind, and also the heat from the sun can do the hair quite a lot of damage, the hydrogen bonds can become weakened, which in turn can weaken the polypeptide chains, and it can also weaken the disulfide bonds. And then the hair can become weak, it can become fragile, it can break. Anybody that's ever overused a flat iron without any heat protection, and heat protection is not, 100% guaranteed always to protect your hair. It depends how it's applied, it depends what you use, it depends how much you use, but it will help. We'll get into how they work a bit later on. But if you do overuse hot tools and those hydrogen bonds become really weak, and that will affect the disulfide bonds and the keratin bonds, the polypeptide chains, which are amino acids, which are what makes up the hair, then the hair will become weak and it could snap. And it can also become dull and look kind of lifeless. So how mad is that? Every time you apply heat, the hair is semi-permanently, and then it cools down, the hair is semi-permanently, the internal structure is set in a different way. Mind-blowing. A brief reminder before we move on that if you enjoy this and find it helpful, You know exactly what to do. You liking this or sharing with a friend really helps get my content out there. And that's what this community is all about. It's about all of you having the best hair that you can, regardless of how much money you have to spend. That's my top priority. So, hot tools. Let's have a brief word on hot tools. This is an iron from a brand called Cloud9. This video is not sponsored. There is nothing in this video that is sponsored at all. You will always be told upfront if there ever is. It's very important to me that I am transparent about that. I don't really make sponsored content. I do stuff that is educational from time to time, but I don't just say, I love this for money. So, this is an iron, a hot iron, a flat iron from a brand called Cloud9. Huge fan. Really brilliant. This isn't about the iron, but the reason I love this iron is, number one, it's beautifully made. Number two, it has a thermostat on it. Okay, there is content here on my channel. I think there's content here on my channel. There's certainly short form videos that shows you these irons. Please use a hot tool with a thermostat on it. Okay, if it's a hairdryer, obviously it will have, cool, medium and hot. And I would suggest that the more you can use it on medium, the better, okay? If it's a hot iron, you really want to use one, excuse my neighbour who is banging around upstairs, you really want to use one that has a thermostat, and you want to see how much hair, or how little heat your hair needs in order to do the job. So for example, if you have very thick, very textured hair, you might need to use an iron on a higher heat to get it smooth. But if you don't have very thick textured hair, you might need to use less heat. I know it sounds really simple, but a lot are very straightforward and a bit like I'm, telling you how to suck eggs. But some brands don't have thermostats. We know which brand I'm talking about. Don't have thermostats on their irons. So the iron is just very hot. They do have other irons now that aren't quite so hot, but not everybody needs that much heat. And certainly if you are somebody that washes their hair, shampoos their hair, say once a week, and you wear your hair very sleek and straight, and you like to top it up in between, your wash days, and you're going over it again with a very, very hot iron, remembering the hydrogen bonds have already been set in one form, as in sleek, and then you're softening them again with a very, very hot iron, it can really lead to a lot of damage, regardless of how much heat protection you have in your hair. So please use a hot tool, a tong or a wand or a flat iron with a thermostat on it, and find out exactly how much heat your hair needs to do the job. A brief word on how heat protectants work. As I've already mentioned, and then we'll talk about some of my favorites and some dupes as well. As we've already mentioned, hair contains moisture, okay, water. Hair has a water content. The cuticle of the hair swells, the water goes into the hair. When you use heat on the hair, obviously you're heating it up, so that pushes the moisture out of the hair. There will still be some moisture in the hair, but it does remove a lot of it. Heat protectants work. They generally contain some form of silicone, like dimethicone or amidimethicone, that is positively charged, that actually coats the hair temporarily in a semi-permanent way. Silicones are not the devil, they are great for heat protection, and that spreads the heat out. Do you ever have you got silicone heat mitts that you take things out of the oven with? Because that stops you from burning yourself. And heat protectants work in the same way by shielding, that's my hand, but by shielding the hair from the heat, spreading it out, trying to stop hot spots from happening when you're using hot tools, thus protecting the hair. Yes, we've got to that part of the video where I share with you some of my favorite heat protectors, some that are high-end, some that are not so high-end. So I have my teenage iPad, because there's a few things on here, and just to reiterate that these use, amidimethicone and dimethicone silicones, yes, in order to protect the hair, spreading out the heat. So first up, we have Olaplex number 6. Now, I think this is the most incredible formulation, Olaplex number 6. If I'm very honest, I don't think it does an awful lot to make the hair strong and to bond it, because it has a lot of silicone in it. When things contain a lot of silicones, it's very hard to then get the actual bonding ingredient into the hair, but it is an amazing heat protector. It's a higher price point, so if you check out Dream Lengths by L'Oreal, they have a super blow dry cream that also contains amidimethicone or dimethicone and makes the hair very soft and silky and will also protect from heat. It has lots of other claims, but we're talking really about heat protection here. Then we have Dream Coat, Colour Wow Dream Coat. I have a video on here on my channel. Yes, that's where I am. I have a video here that has a dupe for Dream Coat. I won't go into too much detail, but Colour Wow Dream Coat is made by the same lab that make the John Frieda products, and they have a product called 3-Day Blow Dry. That is all silicones that really do coat the hair. It's fantastic on hair extensions, really good. Check the video out, I'll link it down below. It's just called DUPES. Then there's the Redken Acidic Colour Gloss Spray. It's amazing. I have used that in the salon. I've bought a couple of them myself. I was given some by Redken to try. That has a lot of amidimethicone in it. It's really good. But interestingly, for £2.99 if you're here in the UK, I'm not sure what it would be in America, for £2.99 you can get the Tresemme heat protection spray that also has amidimethicone in it, which will temporarily, coat the hair and stop heat damage. So, and I've also written down here that a lot of hairsprays will give you physical heat protection. So if you use something that when your hair is damp, and you make sure that you spread it out evenly, work it through, comb it through, or brush it through to make sure that it is even from root to tip. Don't put loads at the roots, obviously, because it's going to make the hair feel heavy, but make sure it is spread out evenly. Dry that in, and before you do your heat styling, apply a little hairspray. Hairsprays give a physical barrier from heat. Not all of them, but a lot of them do, because they contain polymers and copolymers and acrylates that actually do temporarily coat the hair. There you go. Briefly, because it's worth a mention, K18 do make the incredible Damage Shield conditioner, which is exactly what it says. It is silicone free. So some of you that don't want to use that, that's a great option. It is a higher price point because it's very innovative. It uses sugar to protect the hair for up to 3 days from heat in the environment. I use it in the salon on pretty much everybody that has any service in the salon. It is really fantastic. Check it out. I will link that down below as well in the description. Just to go over what we've learned in this video, every time you apply heat to the hair, the hydrogen bonds are effectively broken, and then when the hair cools, they come back together. That's a big deal, so that's why it can really damage the hair. If you're going to use a hot tool like a flat iron or a curling tong or wand, please make sure it's got a thermostat and only use as much heat as you need to. And a hairdryer, use it on medium if it has that setting. If you're going to use a heat protector, no heat protector is completely infallible, so make sure that you spread it out evenly throughout the hair, and go steady with heat, because doing it again and again and again will ultimately cause damage, and especially if your hair has a chemical service on it. So if you have a colour or a perm, some people do still have perms. I love a perm. I still do perms occasionally in the salon. Then it will damage the hair more, because that also affects the bonds of the hair internally. That's it. Heat protection. Have you got a favourite heat protector? How many times I'm going to say heat protector in this video? Let me know in the comments, and a brief reminder that if you leave me a comment or a question, I will always get back to you. Always, always, always. Can't give you specific hair colour formulas though, because I can't see you. But I will always get back to you and help if I can. A huge thank you for watching this. You all take lots of care, and I'll see you all in the next one.